The Dynastic Trap, Crisis Governance in the Kurdistan Region, Iraq. Unpaid salaries, family councils, foreign drones. Kurdistan's fragile future isn't just a crisis, it's a system. The Kurdistan Region of Iraq, KRI, is currently navigating a complex and precarious period marked by a convergence of internal political fragmentation, persistent financial disputes with Baghdad, and escalating regional geopolitical tensions. At the heart of many of these challenges lies the entrenched system of dynastic rule, which has significantly weakened state institutions and exacerbated existing fault lines. 1. The Dynastic Stranglehold, Barzani and Talabani Rule. Since the establishment of the Kurdistan Regional Government, KRG, after 1991, political power has predominantly been monopolized by two families. The Barzanis, through the Kurdistan Democratic Party, KDP, controlling the Erbil and Duhok governorates, often referred to as the Yellow Zone, and the Talabanis, through the Patriotic Union of Kurdistan, PUK, dominating Sulaymaniyah and parts of Kirkuk, the Green Zone. What began as revolutionary leadership in the Kurdish liberation struggle has evolved into a hereditary political system. State institutions, including ministries, parliament, and the judiciary, are often subordinated to family interests, with major decisions frequently made in family councils rather than through transparent governmental processes. Barzanis, KDP. Masoud Barzani remains a paramount behind-the-scenes leader, while his relatives hold key positions. Natravan Barzani serves as the KRG president, and Masroor Barzani is the KRG prime minister. Other family members occupy top roles in security, intelligence, and the lucrative oil sector. This concentration of power sidelines technocrats, independent voices, and even KDP cadres outside the immediate family circle. Talabanis, PUK. Following Jalal Talabani's death, power fractured among his sons, notably Baful Talabani, and nephew, Lahore Talabani. Recent internal purges, such as Baful's sidelining of Lahore, have solidified the PUK as a family-controlled entity, deepening its internal divisions. This dynastic entrenchment has led to institutional paralysis, undermining the KRG's capacity to function as a unified, legitimate state and leaving it vulnerable to internal and external pressures. 2. Civil servant salaries, a catalyst for crisis and political leverage. The issue of civil servant salaries has become a central grievance, reflecting deeper political fault lines within the KRI and between Erbil and Baghdad. Estimates suggest over 500,000 KRG-employed civil servants, including teachers, health workers, and municipal employees, rely on these payments, totaling billions of USD annually. Baghdad's budget and KRG's dependence. Under the 2014 Federal Budget Agreement and subsequent budgets like the 2023-25 multi-year budget, Baghdad committed to paying salaries for public sector employees across Iraq, including the KRI, with a share of approximately 12.67 to 17% of Iraq's national budget allocated to the KRI. However, these payments have often been delayed or partial, leading to widespread strikes and protests across the KRI. Political weaponization of funds. The KDP-led regional government faces accusations of selectively distributing funds received from Baghdad, often favoring KDP strongholds while delaying disbursements to PUK-dominated areas. This transforms salary payments into a political tool used to enforce loyalty and marginalize dissenting regions, particularly in PUK strongholds where leadership is already suppressed under the KDP-dominated KRG hierarchy. Baghdad's fiscal crisis. Baghdad's own fiscal challenges, exacerbated by factors such as fluctuating oil prices and historically by U.S. sanctions on Iran, which previously supplied a significant portion of Iraq's energy needs, have further weakened its ability to deliver timely salaries. This fiscal squeeze provides Baghdad with a means of political leverage over the KRI. The ongoing public protests over unpaid salaries, often featuring chants against family rule, underscore a growing public disillusionment and a loss of faith in the KRG's democratic credentials. 3. External pressures and geopolitical dynamics. The KRI's internal fragility is amplified by a volatile regional environment characterized by the Iran-Israel conflict, the increasing influence of Iran-aligned militias, and the strategic interests of Turkey. Iran-Israel conflict and PMF spillover. The 2024-2025 Iran-Israel conflict has demonstrated the potential for Iraq to become a battlefield. There have been reports of drone and rocket attacks by Iran-backed Popular Mobilization Forces, PMF elements, targeting areas within the Kurdistan region, including Erbil and Kirkuk, particularly following the Iran-Israel ceasefire. Kurdish authorities have formally protested these attacks, which are perceived by some in Baghdad and Washington as Iran asserting strategic pressure via proxy forces. Iran's alignment with Iraq. Prime Minister al-Sudani navigates a precarious balance, maintaining essential economic and political ties with Iran, partly due to Iraq's dependency on Iranian gas and electricity, while facing U.S. pressure to curb the power of Iran-linked militias. Iraq's support for Iran's economic recovery, including unsanctioned energy imports and trade networks, is viewed unfavorably by the U.S. and Israel, who fear these funds empower Iran's regional proxies and threaten U.S. forces stationed in the KRI. U.S. threats of sanctions or military reprisal loom if Baghdad fails to control these Iran-linked militias or prevent Tehran's exploitation of Iraq's energy markets. Turkey's strategic concerns. Turkey observes developments warily, particularly fearing that Israeli influence might extend into the Kurdish south of Iraq. Ankara worries this could undermine its own influence over Kurdish actors and shift regional alliances, especially given Turkey's own history with Kurdish insurgency. 4. Crisis of legitimacy and governance. The entrenched dynastic rule has severely undermined the KRG's institutional capacity and public legitimacy. Major decisions on budgets, security, and oil contracts are made by a handful of family figures, bypassing institutional checks and balances. Civil servant protests, directly fueled by salary non-payment, often include slogans like "End Family Rule," reflecting growing public disillusionment. Younger Kurdish voters increasingly support independent parties like Goran and New Generation, viewing both KDP and PUK as extractive elites. At a moment when PMF threats and economic hardship converge, these internal fractures leave the region vulnerable to both Baghdad's pressures and broader regional ambitions. Conclusion: a geopolitical vortex. The Kurdistan region's crisis is a multi-layered challenge that cannot be explained solely by Baghdad-Erbil disputes or external pressures. The deep-seated problem of dynastic entrenchment has paralyzed the KRG's institutional capacity, rendering it increasingly unable to respond effectively to escalating crises such as the civil servant salary standoff, PMF drone attacks, and the looming spillover from the Iran-Israel conflict. Civil servant salaries, far from being a mere administrative issue, have become a significant lever of power. Baghdad's payments represent a form of soft political pressure, particularly when PUK-aligned provinces are deliberately starved of funds. This internal political manipulation, fueled by dynastic control, amplifies the disputes and further fragments the KRI's internal unity. as Iran-Israel tensions continue to escalate. Iraq's center of gravity increasingly leans toward Tehran, with both PMF escalation and economic reliance reinforcing these alliances, causing concern in Washington and Ankara. Without fundamental reform of state institutions and decisive action to dismantle dynastic strangleholds and depoliticize civil service payments, these internal fissures will persist. This ongoing fragmentation not only undermines the KRG's ability to govern, but also aggravates regional instability at a moment when internal unity could be crucial for survival.
Regional peace initiatives, including Turkey's Kurdish peace talks, Baghdad's negotiations between political factions, and diplomacy surrounding the Iran-Israel conflict, are critical junctures where escalation might either be averted or accelerate the KRI's precarious trajectory.